Buffalo Bills, your AFC East champs from a year ago. What's the best and worst case scenario here for Brock?
Super Bowl appearance. And that's the only thing missing in the Josh Allen story. Of course, he accomplished an MVP. He's been Superman since he entered the league. Since after his first playoff appearance, he really dialed it in and started cleaning up some things. I mean, as far as the Josh Allen arc is considered, it's just getting to a Super Bowl. I'm not going to say he has to win it because I would argue that the worst thing for them, not worst case scenario just yet, but the worst matchup for them is the Eagles. I feel the Eagles would dismantle the Bills. I just think from a strengths versus weaknesses standpoint, they align so much in the Eagles' favor. So I'm not going to put that on his shoulders, but making it to a Super Bowl for Buffalo, a huge notch in the belt of Josh Allen. Worst case scenario, D-line continues to not be clutch. What if I told you that statistically speaking, the Buffalo Bills defensive line, the same defensive line who has not had someone eclipse the 10-sack mark since Leonard Floyd in 2023 in the past 8 seasons. What if I told you that same defensive line is at their worst in the fourth quarter and overtime, which is why for the Bills to win close games, Josh Allen always has to have the ball because the defense is not getting after the opposing quarterback. It's why Patrick Mahomes is such a thorn in their side because they can't get to him. This defensive line has to be clutch. If they're not going to be clutch, then I see their ceiling still being what it is.
Best case scenario, the investment they made in that defensive front pays off. These guys come back from their PED suspensions and otherwise injuries, veterans like Joey Bosa, and they're able to have that pass rush in the playoffs. Another part of that best case scenario is Dalton Kincaid is as advertised. The worst case scenario is that Josh Allen wins another MVP and this team doesn't win a Super Bowl. It's just they've seen it all in Buffalo. They're ready to see the Lombardi.
It is funny. I feel like there's like a handful of teams in the AFC that just like their worst case scenario is like the same. It's just they don't do it this year, right? It's just that they let the Chiefs walk all over them again. That's the worst case scenario for like so many teams, unfortunately, just given their dominance in that conference. My best and worst it just revolves around health and draft evaluation. I'll say it is they stay healthy. Joey Bosa stays healthy. Dalton Kincaid stays healthy. This offensive line stays healthy. Injuries don't hit. Injuries hit, that's, I think, worst case scenario. I think they're going to have a tough time if they have serious injuries along either line of scrimmage. But then also, they are healthy and their draft evals are correct. Their draft eval on Dalton Kincaid, draft from the first round tight end, he turns into that guy. Their first round eval on Maxwell Hairston turns out to not be their first round eval on Kyer Elam, right? Like he actually turns out to be a guy who can handle Xavier Worthy, right? Handle these speed wide receivers, Zay Flowers, handle these speed wide receivers you're going to have to face in the AFC playoffs. And he could just stay in their hip pocket and you don't have to worry about that guy on that side the way you had to do at times last year. So, yeah, I do think that is just it for the Buffalo Bills because that Kyer Elam, once he came into that game a year ago, it was like a deer in freaking headlights for them. It was difficult to watch. As long as you don't have that, I think I think they are right up. I think they at least can get over the hump of the Chiefs. Now, I don't know if they beat the Ravens, but they at least can get over the hump with the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, Miami Dolphins, your, I believe, runner-ups in the AFC East a season ago. Best and worst case scenario, Brock.
Best case scenario, players buy into the culture shift. Now, the last thing you want to do as a head coach going into year 4 is saying, hey, we have a new culture. We're going to start holding players accountable, which is insane that Mike McDaniel had to say that and insane that that's the state of the team internally. And obviously the Tyreek Hill situation, that doesn't help. There's been a slew of injuries. That doesn't help. And they really just haven't performed anywhere near people thought that they would. And I understand that. But you got to find a way to get guys to buy in. He's big on this culture shift. His scheme isn't going to change. The defense is kind of depleted. That's the best case scenario, is if players can buy in and just start showing that they care about football and that they care about winning. Again, worst case scenario is that they end up having the worst pass defense in the NFL. There are very low expectations for the secondary. They just can't be the worst. The only returning starter really they had was nickel Kader Kohu. He is out for the season. Veteran cornerback Artie Burns is out for the season. It's going to be Minkah Fitzpatrick and a bunch of dudes you never heard of. They don't have to be in the top 15. They just can't be ranked number 32.
Can you imagine a world where, stick with me here, people buy into the culture, Tyreek Hill is Tyreek Hill, the defense miraculously finds a way to show up in this group when the temperatures go low. They win some games, okay? I think Dolphins fans would be happy with a playoff win in like maybe freezing temperatures. That would be best case scenario. I'm thinking for this team. Worst case scenario, and stick with me here, Tyreek Hill traded to the Washington Commanders straight up for Terry McLaurin. Jaden Daniels wins the Super Bowl. Tyreek Hill, Super Bowl champion again. And Miami fans are crying on their yachts. I'm just saying that would be worst case scenario. It'd be pretty sad. And the whole season, Zach Wilson is throwing to Terry McLaurin.
I feel like if you have a yacht in Miami, chances are you're a fan of a different team. Just the Dolphins. I honestly, more than any other team, I struggle to come up with the best case scenario because I like we've seen this offense be good and it just like still doesn't matter, right? Like it still kind of is just they get rolled when they have to, play January football, so to speak, when they have to play in cold weather. It's still just like does not end up working out. And we talk a lot about, matches made in heaven between a player and a coach. They have one of what I would call a match made in hell, which is Jack Jones with Mike McDaniel. And Jack Jones, when he was coming out, I remember tweeting about him. And I won't name names, but I had a guy who's involved in NFL scouting in some capacity reach out to me and say, yeah, you don't want Jack Jones in your team. He's a criminal. Like he is a terrible guy. You just don't. And now we are, 4 years into his career. He's been with 3 different teams, just cut outright because people didn't want to deal with his BS. And he's going to maybe one of the most lenient head coaches in the NFL. It's just not going to work out. It just has disaster written all over it, that pairing. But it was by necessity because they had no one. They have no one in the secondary. My worst case scenario, I literally just wrote people try to pass on them. That's the worst case scenario because I do not see how this team can hold up against any semblance of a talented passing offense. New York Jets. Sorry, Harry. I really railed on the Dolphins there, but New York Jets. Best and worst case scenario, Brock.
Best case scenario is Justin Fields, Breece Hall, and Braylon Allen combined for 2,000 rushing yards. That is the key here. This wide receiver room is what it is. Obviously, they only had so much money, so much capital to make things shake. They wanted to get the core of this offense and defense intact, and they'll worry about receivers the next go around. They got to keep this ball on the ground. Justin Fields wins games, but he still turned the ball over quite a bit in the couple starts that he had a year ago. Breece Hall needs the ball in his hands. I understand they keep pushing. Aaron Glenn keeps pushing this running back trio thing. Get Breece Hall the ball in his hands. Braylon Allen when he's tired, and Justin Fields always being an option back there. 2,000 yards on the ground for those 3. Worst case scenario, if Tyrod Taylor has to replace a healthy Justin Fields at any point in the season, similar to the Cleveland example that you used, if Joe Flacco is still starting late into the year, it was a failure. If Justin Fields cannot be, hey, we trust you to go out there from week 1 through the end of the season, our starter, no question about it, then this season is a failure for them as well. And they're starting from scratch again next year. So Tyrod Taylor, we love you. One of the most likable guys in the NFL. We need you to stay on the bench. We need Justin Fields to finally put this all together.
Look, I mean, if he does that, they're going to establish a real identity offensively. And we know what it's going to be. It's going to be physical. They're going to lean on the draft picks on the offensive line. And, that's my best case scenario is that this team develops a concrete culture. And offensively, what kind of team you're going to play against. And you better tape up a little bit more. And you better buckle all your buckles because these guys are coming. All right? That's what the Jets offense is going to be. And I think that's best case. And the defense is, a defense that you would imagine Aaron Glenn will put on the field. But the worst case scenario is that you don't get that year 2 leap from your offensive lineman that you drafted in the first round in Ola Fashanu. And you don't get a stellar performance from your rookie first rounder, Armand Membu, who I fell in love with during the scouting process because of the rest of the iceberg that I think is under the water that we could see. That's called potential talent, which are bad words in the NFL. Hopefully for the Jets, they get some real ass kickers for the next decade, and they can use that culture they established this year running the football.
Yeah, I'm very interested to watch the Jets this year. I can't believe I'm saying that. But I think there's a world in where we see this, with everyone rushing towards these lighter defenses who have 220-pound linebackers who are built to stop the pass. Like with everyone going down that road, if we see a hard zig from certain teams a different way where they're saying, you're doing that, we're going to put 2 tight ends and a fullback on the field every play. We're going to run the ball 70% of our snaps. It's going to be option football. We're going to have this creative running game where we're triple optioning. We're doing just things like, watching Navy play offense in college football, where it's just, hey, you make those 220-pound linebackers, make these 280-pound DTs, make these 230-pound edges, play physical football for 60 minutes and see if they can do it. And then, oh, by the way, we'll hit you over the top once or twice with Garrett Wilson and Justin Fields. And it could be very difficult to stop this run heavy and D approach, which the Jets, I think, are the unique test case to do. They have the offensive line, they have the running quarterback, they have the running back, they have the one wide receiver, they have the defense that's stout enough that they could make this really work if they're creative enough. And again, like with the way the rest of the NFL is going, they are the interesting test case that I want to see how it works out, because not everyone's going to be able to have Patrick Mahomes. Not everyone's going to be able to have Josh Allen. If you don't have one of those guys, maybe this is your best path to success. So I'm very curious to see how that works out. But the worst case scenario is just like, every other year of Justin Fields' career, unfortunately. Not to really hammer home, but that's just how it's gone for him the rest of his career. All right, New England Patriots, last team in the East here.
Best case scenario, they win the AFC East. Mike, you and I were on the same side here a couple episodes ago. I see a playoff team with New England. So if they're a playoff team, they can't be that far away as far as win totals from Buffalo. Buffalo has a significantly tougher schedule. They can win the AFC East. Everything has to come together perfectly, but that's what Mike Vrabel does. He brings guys together. We were talking about a culture shift. We were talking about chemistry in Miami just a couple minutes back. That's what Mike Vrabel does. He brings guys together. He is a no-nonsense guy. And there's something to a head coach that could beat you up if you wanted to, that you listen to him and you fall in line. And that is exactly what's going to happen with this team. Worst case scenario is if the new offensive additions lay an egg, specifically if Travion Henderson can't eventually become the starter from Ramondre Stevenson and show some explosivity in that running back room. If Stephon Diggs, for whatever reason, just does not gel with Drake May, or if Will Campbell cannot hold his own out there on the edge, and now there's a reshuffling, we got to slide him inside, or we got to bench him, and now this new look offensive line can't really find 5 consistent names to protect Drake May, and he's running for his life every play again. But that being said, I do see a playoff team here, and I feel that Mike Vrabel is just the most slam dunk hire that you could have ever imagined. He was born to do 2 things: hit people and coach the New England Patriots, and he's filling up number 2 right there.
There was a movie. There was a movie that I watched a very long time ago. You guys may be familiar with it. It's called Cool Runnings.
Of course,
it's about a Jamaican bobsled team, and they had a team, but they didn't have a bobsled, so they had to make one, and it was a piece of shit, and it was rusted. And, they were training in the bathtub, and they had guys with real confidence issues. There was a scene in the movie where a young man named Junior walks into the bathroom. I think they're at a bar or something, and he's not confident. And he says, I just see Junior in the mirror, and his buddy, Yul Brenner, is the guy's name in the movie. He's like, no. I see pride, I see power, and I see a badass MF who won't take no off of nobody. That's Mike Vrabel. And last year we said that this bobsled was so porous that we didn't want to put there. It didn't deserve a team. We didn't want to see Drake May because the team was so bad. This year in the preseason, it's like the Mike Vrabel effect is happening. You guys are talking playoffs right now for the Patriots. I think that's amazing. I think it really is. I don't know why I did Cool Runnings, but it just reminded me of Mike Vrabel.
It worked. It worked.
So My best case scenario, Drake May leap year, smartest and toughest team in football. And I mean that from a game management, standpoint. Nobody's better than Mike Vrabel, in my opinion. That guy is just like, he lives for the chess match that is the game that you can control as a head coach. Worst case scenario is they're just not there yet. And I'm right there with you guys. The team's going to be better. Drake May is going to be a guy that I can't keep my eyes off of. But there's only about 3 to 5 teams that are elite in the NFL, and maybe the Patriots aren't there yet. That's the worst case scenario.
Yeah, I'll just add one worst case scenario because I'm right there with you guys in best case scenario. But I think worst case scenario could just be that Drake May does not mesh with Josh McDaniels' offense. Because if that's the case, it's not like Josh McDaniels going anywhere anytime soon. They're not going to fire him after 1 year. But Josh McDaniels didn't mesh with Derek Carr. Josh McDaniels really has only meshed with Tom Brady, right? Over the course of his career as an offensive coordinator, whether it was with Denver, where before Jay Cutler even stepped on the field, he wanted him out of town. And Cutler plays the quarterback position, or I guess Drake May plays the quarterback position similarly to Jay Cutler did. And way back then, he didn't want him running his offense. So I don't think just like if I'm picking an offensive coordinator to play to Drake May's strengths, it would not objectively be Josh McDaniels. So that's the biggest worry to me, is that there could just be, that's not the guy who's going to maximize your franchise quarterback. Even so, I mean, Drake May is a great quarterback. I don't think he's going to fail, but if it's just not quite the right fit, I think that's the worst case scenario, because you'll try to fit this square peg in a round hole for the next 3 seasons if that's